countries, is the fact that those countries are not well populated and they need an army. So basically they struck some sort of a deal with the US and they got a couple of bases. Let's take, for example, Qatar. Qatar is a really small country.
Yeah.
The population of the people of Qatar, I'm talking about the people with the Qatar passport or citizenship. I believe that there are 400,000, 500,000.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. The rest of the people who live there are workers from all over the world, like Arab world, other Arab countries, the Indian subcontinent, and other countries. So basically, what they did is that because Qatar is a small island in the Persian or Arab Gulf, or whatever you want to call it, they fear for themselves. So they want some protection. So they need protection. So because in exchange of that protection, I bet they did some deals. And then since you've mentioned also the issue of the unhealthy relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, it's also the same concept. The Saudi army is not there.
It's not existent.
It's not well equipped. I mean, if you look at the Yemeni crisis, they're not efficient. They're not doing like significant stuff there. They're getting their soldiers being killed on the borders, which is really silly. So they have struck some sort of a deal with the U.S. government. We're gonna sell you fuel as cheap as hell, and in addition, they'll keep buying all those American and European arms just to protect themselves, and because out of the fear that maybe Iran will do something. Iran became like the new world's scarecrow, and now all the Gulf countries basically are just buying weapons and just restocking their armory every once in a while. So, I mean, if you don't know, Saudi Arabia was one of the first countries that actually bought the F-35 Lightning.
Okay. That cost the United States how many, almost $1 trillion to produce? And we're late on getting that out into mass production. And it's replacing another aircraft in the United States. It doesn't need to even be...
Is that the one that doesn't fly? Or?
That would be the one!
It has some functioning.
It's got a few problems.
You know, maybe the most important thing.
Not a whole flight thing.
Right.
It's a vertigo bomber.
But it's got capabilities that are already outdated. By the time this thing actually hits mass production, or is it's being produced now, but it's got old technology by our standards.
So a couple $1 trillion in that, but we can't spend a couple billion on free education. But that's another topic.
Well, again, where is our money going? Our priorities are out of whack. Because I think Mohammed again makes a very interesting point. That okay, so we have these relationships. We've got countries that don't have training, or don't have an army, or don't have the resources to have an army. So essentially, we're soldiers for hire. Okay, we're mercenaries, we're thugs, we're the mafia. You know, call it what you will. Hey, we'll give you protection if you give us oil. I feel like the mob. Now, doesn't mean we're blowing up people's cars or anything like that.
Unless you ask us to.
But as far as we know, but we'll shoot a smart bomb at them. But I think the interesting point here is okay. So let's look at a country like Qatar. They asked us to help, which is great. But aren't there places closer that have tools, that have resources? At some point, instead of actually supplying the army, can't we just go in and maybe take you to school, give you some training, give you some resources on how to develop this for yourself, and then...
They don't have population. Again, maybe the best chance for them is to rely on the Saudi army, and again, the Saudi army is under-equipped comparing with other, like the top 10 armies of the world. So,
well, for a long time, I think Iraq had the number 6 rated army in the world, then the number 7th, and then I just remember seeing from... was it 1991? The Iraqi soldiers coming out with their arms up and putting down their weapons at the foot of American soldiers. I'm probably showing the age here a little bit amongst members. Okay, Merge remembers, but you know what I'm talking about. So you're right. Perhaps they're ill-equipped, but is the whole rationale for us to have bases all over the country to help protect those around us? The answer to that question is yes. Then that defends the statement earlier that perhaps we do, in fact, have the president of the world because we're lending our resources out, or in this case, contracting our resources out. And if we're going to do that, then at some point, yeah, you have a certain allegiance, if you will. Man, that's a communist-sounding term.
I think it has more to do with being afraid. I think we're afraid to not have a presence in other countries for fear of what they could do if we don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's a great point. We're scared to death.
You mean with Russia and China and...
Yeah, having those different bases in other countries, I think people tend to think that if we don't have our presence there constantly, then there's a chance that we could be overrun, that we could have, we could lose control in those areas instead of just trying to rely on better relations
expansion.
with them. They want a physical presence.
I'm sorry, Merge, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna see if we can go around and see what we can do with the crisis, and then we're gonna move to the analysis
all right.
of the debate. So
go ahead.
We're gonna start with Muhammad. What do you think is the best means or tools or ways that we could do, because the refugee crisis it's getting worse, and it's really a major problem in the world. So what would be that solution, like a vision or something? An idea. What do we do with it as a global community?
Well, as I already mentioned, Assad
needs to go. Assad, do you guys?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, but are we afraid to get Assad gone because we don't want to make a mistake? What happened with Saddam Hussein? Saddam Hussein has kept that world, that part, that Iraq put together, you know, and if we get rid of another dictator, we know what's going to happen. We might have, so we don't know. Or also, are we afraid because Syria is being protected by Russia and Iran? So what can we do? I mean, what's the other choices out there? So.
Well, here's the thing: because the U.S. and the EU have refused to intervene earlier, that have given a leeway for the Russians to do that, like flagrant. Out in the open. Yeah, we're supporting Assad. Because they didn't intervene. And here's another thing. President Obama have promised that in case that the Syrian army uses chemical weapons against its citizens, then that's a red line.
The red line.
It got breached.
It got crossed.
It got crossed. And they didn't do anything about it. And now we're seeing this refugee crisis. People fleeing their homes and countries, being drowned in the Mediterranean, or just getting killed by smugglers and all these stuff. Now, if a solution was like followed at the get-go, like at the beginning when it all happened, then probably think like that. It wouldn't have exacerbated the way.
Yeah, but it's too late now. So I think we all agree we want Assad to go, but there should be what's next after Assad is gone, right?
Unfortunately, it will need a bunch of compromises. First of all, Russia, maybe that will involve lifting some of the sanctions on Russia. Maybe it will mean that evolving the deal with Iran. Because speaking of Iran's case, I would like just to give a small commentary. I believe that perhaps the reason why the U.S. have struck a deal with Iran is because they don't want Iran to go haywire. Just, okay, let's keep things managed, because maybe they will feel like, they don't want us to do the nuclear stuff. You know what? We didn't do the nuclear bomb, but we're gonna do it just because they want to seek trouble. So perhaps the U.S. didn't want them to go on their own, so they wanted to keep things in hand, and perhaps that would be a legitimate reason. Otherwise, I don't like that deal. So yeah, back to our story. So that if Assad should go, that will mean first of all, there will a bunch of compromises that needs to be struck. And I don't know if the U.S. if they have any winning cards at the time being.
Yeah, and we still have to deal with ISIS, which is already.
And ISIS is the pain in the neck.
Well, it's more than that. They have $2 billion and more in counting.
They're not pain in the neck. They cut necks.
Yeah, there you go. So it's really a major thing that's happening. So I don't know. So we all agree that we want Assad to go.
Yeah, but I think the way to make them do it isn't to force it on ourselves. I think we need to actually show those countries that they can do it themselves, and maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good one.
Absolutely.
I don't think boots on the ground is.
No boots on the ground. No boots.
I'm saying like a mental health, something that doesn't involve our money and our people.
Right.
Larger portions of our money,
portions
of our people, because they need to learn that they can support themselves, that they don't rely on the United States, and then like Kelsey mentioned earlier, that it can carry through to other countries and other situations.
Right. So so I think we're good. We don't want Assad, but we want him gone. But there should be some solution right after that. Like, so we don't want to happen like what happened to Iraq, when we got rid of Saddam Hussein, and then we don't know what to do after that. And so that's right. So I think you guys agree. Assad is gone, and then make sure that ISIS. We're still trying to grapple what to do with ISIS, because it's a major thing.
And, I mean, the way that they function as a terrorist organization is completely different from what we've seen before. They're a lot more modernized, and they're able to reach out. I mean,
they're a society. I wouldn't even call them a group anymore. They're a society.
They're a
borderlining. Yeah, I was going to say they're a state. They've got governing bodies. They've got a system. They've got weapons. And I mean, if you really want to break that down, that's when you start talking about options that are boots on the ground or borderline nuclear, and that's something that none of us want to have.
We don't know where they're at. We don't. They're like spread apart.
It's a network.
There's people in this country that are affiliated in one way, shape, or form, or maybe motivated. And when you look back,
sympathizers.
And if you look back,
like sleeper cell. So I mean, like one day.
I wouldn't call them sleeper cells.
Well, some of them might be 10 years from now. They're going to be like doing.
Going back to the whole Syrian refugee crisis and accepting asylum seekers, refugees, is that some countries are afraid that they can't weed out those people who are a part of ISIS, who are going to make attacks from inside their own country. So I think with some like Austria and Hungary, I know they're hesitant to accept so many people. But I think some other countries might be a little more hesitant as well, because they could be potentially letting in those.
But this is about 2% of the coming in potentially are supportive of ISIS or part of it. So I think this is when I rely and I look toward the young generation. With your tech savviness, I think you can counter. This is the best way and the best tool for us in the 21st century, that you have the power on your fingertips to engage and connect with your counterparts in every part of the world. And I think this is the way we could combat ISIS, and we can also look at what's happening with the crisis and everything else that's going on, so that the next generation that are going to come after you will not find the world completely in chaos and disarray and falling apart, because that's where we are right now. So.
Regarding ISIS, as a practicing Muslim, I do believe that the responsibility of obliterating ISIS lies in the hands of Muslims themselves, not the U.S. and not, because if the U.S. intervenes or Europe intervenes, then that will increase the numbers of sympathizers. So it's a crusade campaign. They want to obliterate Islam, the real religion, and all this stuff.
But how many millions of Muslims have already been killed out of this? I mean, the ISIS is killing Muslims.
They're killing Muslims.
That's because there's Muslims joining ISIS every day. If Muslims joined together and said, "Hey, we're not putting up with terrorists and putting a bad name to our religion," then I think you would have a better way of combating it.
Right, but the problem is America is the common enemy. So it's all against us. If we withdraw ourselves, maybe it would be.
So let me ask you this then. So America is the common enemy. Are we the common enemy because we're in a place where we're not wanted? Because general consensus in the United States is we're also in a place where we don't want to be. I mean, I don't think the soldiers want to be there. I know a lot of citizens don't want to be there. I sure as hell don't want to keep paying taxes to have people there. I'm certainly not saying that any kind of crazy regime, and I'm going to call them a regime, is right in their practices. But I'm not a practicing Muslim. And again, if eliminating ISIS falls in the hands of Muslims themselves, I am all for that. Your problem, take care of it. But why are we the common enemy? Because short of going in there and helping the good people of Kuwait and getting rid of Saddam Hussein, who not only was a dictator, but he also killed his own people, and then there was we could go back forever with this scene to go on. Explain to me why. And again, I'm on the American side looking out, so from the outside looking in, why is everybody saying America's the common enemy? I'd love to know.
I think it's because we have a tendency as a country to not just help, we have to try to impose our own viewpoints, we have to try to impose our own democracy.
So we don't mind our own business.
We don't. Well, it's more, I think there's like a fine line. You can help countries without saying, here's how you need to handle your country, here's how you need to run it. We try to impose our democratic system on them, Sometimes, you know, we have people in there that try to impose religion and try to get them to be a little more on the Christian side of things than Muslim. And I think that's, or at least that's how they see it. Some people do, because I've heard that. I just think that if we stepped back and helped them instead of try to impose our lives on them, I think that it would come across.
So you want the carrots rather than stick, right? Because sometimes it's the stick. We want our views. You know, we want them to be democratic when it's not going to work. It's not.
So we're that kid in class that keeps raising his hand, who has all the answers. The teacher keeps calling on, and we're going, ooh, 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 pick me, pick me.
And it's wrong.
Well,
And it's exactly.
Okay.
You're that. We're right now. We're that annoying
out,
kid.
America.
Yeah, we're that annoying kid. So you know, yeah, you're right. America, put your hand down. I'm going to pick on somebody else. Okay, you just sit there. You did your homework. You read terrific, and now I'm going to call on you, Mr. UK.
Well, and what's ridiculous is America was built on different kinds of people. I mean, we all came from different countries with different viewpoints, different religion, different ideas. So the fact that we now have to be one kind of, you know, religion, we all have to be one kind of person, you know, that's where a lot of our national issues come from anyway, and then we try to impose those issues on other countries, and it doesn't help their issues that they're fighting in their own countries.
So interesting question for you then, and Mohammed, I'm going to ask you for some input here too. Okay. In the United States, we have often referred to ourselves as being a great melting pot. We have several races, different creeds, we have different religions.
Yeah.
When you go overseas, do you have one main religion, or do you have several like you do here in the United States?
Well, I came from Gaza Strip, for starters, and we don't have that much of a variety when it comes to other religions or ethnicities. The U.S. what gives the U.S. this kind of I may say that amazing mixture or congregation of different ethnicities and cultures because it's a relatively younger country. So people from all over the world tend to come here. They want to have the American dream and whatnot. But if we look at other countries like Syria or Iraq, they have a variety of religions, ethnicities. You have Muslims from different sects, and the same thing goes for Christians. And they have coexisted and lived really like with each other. They were neighbors. They were relatives. They had a lot of things in common. Well, until some maniacs came in. Regardless, so we do. I mean, we do have this. We also, in some countries, we do have that that kind of coexistence. But returning to the issue of the U.S. intervention and how the U.S. handles all those issues, I believe that talking about forcing the democracy or these kind of things, I don't think it's they're doing it out of a genuine need or a genuine drive to do it. Because if we look at the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the U.S., Saudi Arabia doesn't have a democracy. Basically it's a monarchy, and everyone's getting handpicked by the royal family. There isn't much of a there isn't much democracy there. The freedom of speech doesn't exist, basically.
Slaughter their own people.
Sure.
It's not. Well, I wouldn't say slaughter their own people. It's not as dramatic as it's getting published in the internet. I'm not a fan of the Saudi government or the system there, but they're not as maniacal as some other countries. So I wouldn't say that. But again, I mean, you're trying to force your country. You're trying to force your culture or your values on countries that you have conquered, but yet the countries that you are striking deals with countries that does not cherish the same system or the same way of life that you have. I mean, you'll find that the Saudi government are real best buddies with the American government. Yet you'll find some people in Saudi Arabia itself, they can describe the U.S. as an evil country.
Right.
Oh, look at them. They don't like Muslims. They have people who discriminate against us. They have things. They are doing prohibited things. They have homosexuality. They have whatever. They start arousing all those topics.
Right, and I think what our biggest issue is that we're trying to enforce assimilation to these countries whenever it needs to be more of a multiculturalism perspective. You can get along, but and still have differences. But we're so afraid of that. because we don't know other cultures as well as we think we do.